Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kiran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there.
I had a really interesting chat with this incredible luthier from Flame Guitars today. Lovely guy, producing incredible stuff. And we chatted about all things, his work and the guitars he was making, which was stunning. Some Harley Bentons that he equally thought were churning out some great guitars as modding platforms that even he had fun.
Interesting to hear a luthier actually say
right?
that.
Because he can make a guitar, and when you look at what he can, oh my God, the guy is an artist and a craftsman. It was stunning. But even he said he likes messing around with some Harley Bentons and just seeing how good he can make them, because what they're churning out is great. And he actually had something really profound to say. He said, you know, all these vintage instruments you see here, he said he loves them. I mean, like we all love them. He said he's a fan of guitars, right? But he said what you have to remember is that, you know, these guitars were built in like the early, you know, mid-50s, late 50s, early 60s. What remains are the good ones.
Greetings! Welcome back to the Guitar Smarts podcast. If you're an everyday gigging guitarist, this is the podcast for you. A couple of weeks back on the 30th of October, Kiran and me managed to get down to the London International Guitar Show at Kempton Park. And it was a fantastic show. Every vintage guitar you could hope to see, lots of new guitars too, expensive and inexpensive, just some utterly brilliant new luthiers and some more familiar luthier names too. After a good few hours on our feet, we sat down for some lunch, and believe it or not, we recorded our first ever face-to-face Guitar Smarts episode. The audio quality is not the best, but the conversation is good, and we particularly enjoyed this episode. Housekeeping: remember to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast app. This way, you will get alerts when a new podcast is released, and that means you won't miss the next show. If you've already liked and subscribed, thank you, and listen to us regularly, then use the LinkTree in the description of this show to leave us a rating or a review. This is the best way to support us, and it helps us to grow. Use those links to get to our Buy Me a Coffee page if you do feel generous, and links to some of our Spotify playlists from previous episodes too. Come and see us on the socials, especially on the Guitar Geek Hangout page on Facebook, where you can interact with Kiran and myself and many other guitar nerds just like us. That's about enough from me. Let's get to it. It's been an exhausting morning, but really fantastic. So we're here at the London International Guitar Show.
Yeah, we've managed to steal some space to get.
And this is the first time we've ever podcasted face to face.
Oh, that's true,
isn't it?
That is true.
How bizarre is that? And we're on location.
We are on location. So we're at Kempton Park Racecourse. Yeah. It's 30th of October.
Yeah.
We've just managed to stop, grab a drink. Grab a sandwich, which was much needed. Yeah. Because we have literally been traipsing up and down for the last few hours.
One hell of a show, isn't it?
I'm a little bit overstimulated.
Very much overstimulated, yeah. Completely overstimulated.
There's everything here. From 59 Les Pauls, 1960s Gibson collections.
That's it, yeah.
54 Fender Strats. Mm-hmm. The holy grails of guitars are here.
In Kempton Park.
That's
right.
All the way down to £149 Les Paul that I tried.
£149 Les Paul, a new range of guitars.
Which was actually quite good.
We'll talk about.
Yeah.
And everything in between, and people selling all the accessories you could want, people selling all the different parts you could actually want, everything. Yeah. Basically here in this, it's not a very big show, is it? I mean, we're not talking like a...
It's not like Excel Centre or kind of like one of those big exhibition centre shows. It's in a... I guess the original concept of these shows, and they do a few of them across the UK right throughout the year, was to try to replicate those tabletop guitar stand shows that are in America, right? Where you can just rock up and, you know, hopefully find that dream guitar on sale. So I think it's the UK's attempt at doing one of those. And I've never been to one of those American shows that Joe Bonamassa would go and frequent as a child on Guitar Safari.
Joe would have loved it here today.
Well, there's a lot of vintage stuff that he would have probably bought.
Actually, what surprised me most is that the first 59 we saw was actually about 10 steps away from the front door.
Literally.
So
it started well.
He wouldn't have had to have gone far before he's getting the American Express.
That's it. Go fully on safari. Something would have been shot within the first 5 minutes on his safari. But you did say on the car journey up here, you said, I'm interested in seeing some vintage stuff, and there it was. Yeah. Within 5 minutes, we were face to face. Yeah, no glass, no velvet rope to speak of. No, literally, not at all. It's not like being at the Louvre. It's not. It's just there on a tabletop in front of you. Yeah, exactly. Here's a touch it if you want. £300,000 was the. It was exactly £300,000 was the price of that first vintage, and it was a 60. It was a 1960. It was. Beautiful guitar next to another 1960. Quite astounding, really, to have been around that instrument. But I didn't feel how I thought I'd feel. It didn't start glowing. You didn't hear a chorus of angels. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I see these instruments the same way a lot of people see them. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. Yeah. £300,000? Yeah. Come on. Do you know what? I felt the same. Yeah, it's the first time I've been that physically up close. Literally, I mean, there was nothing between us and the guitar. It was there. As exactly. You said. If you wanted to, you could pick it up. I would expect there to be like a security guard standing there, but there wasn't. It was just there. Yeah. And the guys from that particular stall were just circling and asking, do you need any help? But no one was like... No. Looking at you to say, why? What did you say? Don't look at it too closely, or exactly. Age. It's a bit of age. Stop looking at it. But I kind of looked at it and went. I felt the same. I went, it is just a guitar. I think that's exactly it. I think that's the realization I had looking at it was. Yeah. If I pick this up, you know what it's going to feel like? Yeah. A Les Paul. It's good. It's just going to feel like a Les Paul. Yeah. If I was to pick that up and play it, I'm sure that if I spent £300,000 on that guitar, I would be completely and utterly underwhelmed. If I spent £5,000 on it, something like that. Amazing. Yeah. Well, you'd also have some sort of blood pressure issues because you'd have a hole in your side where the kidney had been taken from you to fund it. So I don't think anyone's going to buy my kidney for £300,000. Okay. Mine's done enough work already. But it is kind of like I don't know, maybe underwhelming. I don't think you could be that impressed by it unless you're seeing it in the hands of someone who can really show you how a guitar like that should sound and be played. Sure. I don't know, but one of the things I was intrigued by, I've said this before, is the amount of money you need to spend to get into the vintage market on other guitars is totally accessible. Yeah, isn't it? Well, on that same stand, with these 1960 original bursts, as you literally walked a few paces, from £300,000 guitars, you then had a whole set of 1960s SGs, early 60s SGs for £3.5 grand. Yeah. And then a few paces on, there was some 335s on that same stand. Again, we're talking, I can't remember how much the 335s were, but they were around £4 or £5 grand maybe. They had like a 65 335 dot 335 in like a walnut finish. Oh, that was beautiful. That was about £4 grand, I think. £4.5 grand. Yeah. And it's like, it's Murphy Lab money, isn't it? And this is the thing. Less than Murphy Lab money. It is, yeah. But I guess there's the key thing is the price of, I think the price of a lot of Gibson Murphy Lab guitars is propped up by a select number of really uber desirable for sure Gibson guitars, like late 50s Les Pauls. What's that? Early 60s and late 50s 335s.
that might be it. Some like Carina stuff. You know, there's some like vintage Gibson instruments that do command a lot of money. And outside of that, you can take one side. You know, if you get a 64, 65 Cherry original 335, you're paying, you know, 5 figures. But if you just get the same guitar in a different finish, you're paying less than you're paying Murphy Lab money now. That's true. So why not take that sidestep and get into the vintage market and get an amazing guitar? Yeah. But not pay the premium because you're choosing the colour everyone wants. Why not just choose something like a walnut finish or something like that? And then you can save a lot of money and get yourself a bona fide, made by the same people, you know, from wherever.
Do you know what? And I think it'll be a little while before I spend that kind of money on a guitar again. It's a lot of money for something, as we've talked about, you know, weekends or, you know, gigging guitarists where you're probably not going to rock up to a gig with a $5,000, $10,000 vintage instrument. But, you know, these are investment pieces that do hold their value or if nothing else, slightly appreciate in value depending on the model you get. And maybe there will be a point in my life again where I want to, I've got young kids now and kids are expensive, man, but maybe there will come a point in my life again where I think, you know what, I'm going to mark this occasion with a really considered purchase of something really, you know, as an heirloom piece or something. I definitely think now I would go and find out like some of the vintage stuff that we've seen here today that isn't a 59 or a 60s burst or isn't, you know, one of those fabled years from Gibson's history where it just commands a ridiculous sum, because that walnut 335, that was a mid-60s one that you saw for $3-4 grand was stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Completely. Yeah.
You know, you can't go and buy, we can barely go and buy a brand new off-the-shelf standard factory production one for one of the, for that money now. They're going for $2.5 grand straight away. And you think, actually, you know, to your point, the entry position into the vintage market for some really cool stuff, not just from Gibson, because we've seen it here from Fender, we've seen some early PRS stuff here, we've seen a lot of vintage stuff. Actually, it's, if you pick the right model, you can get some really cool stuff. It's where you get drawn to the, I really want a 59 Gibson burst that everyone covets, and that's why it's supply and demand and its popularity. Exactly. And I had a really interesting chat with this incredible luthier from Flame Guitars today. Lovely guy, producing incredible stuff. And we chatted about all things, his work and the guitars he was making, which was stunning. Some Harley Bentons that he equally thought were churning out some great guitars as modding platforms that even he had fun.
Interesting to hear a luthier actually say
right?
that.
Because he can make a guitar, and when you look at what he can, oh my God, the guy is an artist and a craftsman. It's stunning. But even he said he likes messing around with some Harley Bentons and just seeing how good he can make them, because what they're churning out is great. And he actually had something really profound to say. He said, you know, all these vintage instruments you see here, he said he loves them. I mean, like we all love them. He said he's a fan of guitars, right? But he said what you have to remember is that, you know, these guitars were built in like the early, you know, mid-50s, late 50s, early 60s. What remains are the good ones. That have stood the test of time. So when people try them now, they go, oh, God, that was the best year that Gibson ever made stuff. He said, I've seen Gibsons from that era that are not great, where the quality control is shocking, where they don't play that well, where, you know, where the... You know, even Fenders, he was saying, from that era where the neck doesn't fit properly in the pocket, and everyone goes, "Oh, you know, that's the best year for tellies." And well, you know, you got to think about it in terms of right here and right now. The ones that we're looking at are the good ones that people cherished and looked after and have stood the test of time. A lot of the ones that were, you know, dogs who've been recycled years ago and didn't make it. So, interesting.
Very interesting. Sorry to interrupt this conversation. However, if you've made it this far, you should definitely subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast app. Go and do that now, then come right back. I'll wait here. Hey, welcome back. What do you think is like, what is the threshold for when something becomes vintage?
It's time. Is it time?
Well, I know it's time.
Yeah, right. I thought it was a trick question.
Brilliant answer.
Or is it when Tom Murphy takes one into the Murphy lab and puts his stamp on it, then it's immediately vintage? Like if Tom Murphy all of a sudden started to do a rerun of, I don't know, Gibson Les Paul Studios from the 1990s, does that then become vintage and desirable?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, I think we know what is desirable on the vintage market, but what I'm asking is what time in history, what age, what year in history would you say is the threshold for when the guitar is classed as a vintage instrument? 1980?
30 years? Yeah.
30. So we're saying an early 90s guitar then
potentially
is now classed as a vintage instrument.
Well, I saw one on Reverb earlier this week. I was just browsing on Reverb and there was an early 90s Gibson Les Paul classic. And that was being badged as a vintage instrument and it was going for 2,700. Yeah. Pretty much stock. Yeah. I think they changed the machine heads out. Yeah. But in a decent way where it hadn't left holes in the headstock or anything. And 2,700 for a guitar that originally cost £999 back in early 90s. Yeah. But it was being sold as a vintage instrument. So I think you're right. I think that is where people are saying now vintage exists. Yeah. And then commanding a higher price tag because it is now deemed vintage.
Well, this is the thing, you see, because I think I don't think that those things are lined up. I think that the line that says when a guitar is vintage and the line that says the line in time that says when the price starts going back up again, I think there's a gap between the two, and that gap is your sweet spot for where you need to be investing, like an 80s Strat. Yeah. An 80s Strat, I reckon you could still pick up for everyday money. Yeah. Now, not even vintage, cheap vintage money. You could probably pick up an 80s Strat for $1,000, something like that, a decent model.
Oh, that'd be worth it.
Because 70s Strats are going up in value.
70s
Strats are now starting to come up in price. So
they are.
Why not invest your money now in an 80s Strat, an early 80s Strat, and then 10 years' time, you might double your money. Yeah. I think there's this, that's what I think. I think there's this sweet spot of as time moves on, stuff falls into that bracket of, okay, now it's worth more because we're now looking at a 40 or 50-year-old instrument. Yeah. But unless you're actually... Because we know there's the holy grail stuff, the 60s and 50s Strats, the late 50s Les Pauls, the mid-60s, ESs and things like that. That'll never change. Those will always be expensive. Sure. But the other stuff that's getting older and older that isn't the desirable stuff, its price will still come up once it gets to a certain historical age. Yeah. So how do you invest just before that happens to get the most out of it? There's a lot, because there's a lot of those types of guitars at these shops.
There is a fair amount, and we had a chat to James Collins at his stand, right? And he's producing some beautiful guitars. We've talked about him on the show before, and there was a couple of things that we talked about with regards to that, which is we're now getting into an era where people start to kind of remember the guitars from their childhood and want to start to buy those years. Yeah. So, okay, for people like us, kind of middle-aged guys who've got a bit of disposable cash here and there, you kind of want to go and find. Like I saw, didn't I? I saw an early 90s Gibson Les Paul classic.
That's right, the classic, the 1916 classic.
One. And I said that was my dream guitar when I was a kid. Yeah. And I've been looking for one of these because it was a plain top with the slim neck and the open core humbuckers. Yeah. This one, someone had put bare knuckles in, but it originally came with
open coils.
Open coils.
Zebra? With the zebra open coils?
No, they weren't. They were all black. Right. And part of me thinks that they were ceramic as well. I think they used to be ceramic.
Really?
Yeah. Don't quote me on that. Someone tell us on the show if those 90s runs of Gibson Les Paul classics came with open core ceramic pickups. Can't remember. But so I've always been looking for that guitar now, but that is considered a vintage instrument now. Yeah. So there's that element of it, people wanting to buy what they revered as a kid. The other thing is numbers. People go crazy for numbers of significance. So he and I are both looking for different guitars from a particular year. I want a 79 Strat because I was born in 79. He wants a 74 Telly or something because he was born in that year. And we both went, they're crap years for those guitars. You know that. We went, they are. They're rubbish years.
But it's of significance to you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing is that last point, which is certain years have this fabled, rightly or wrongly, impression that they were good years, like with wine, right? Oh, that was a great year for that grape. The terroir was just right, and the stars aligned in a particular way, and the fruit just went like this. And, that was a great year for that. Yeah. You hear the same thing about guitars. Probably the same people making them, same stuff off the factory shelf, but people comment that was a great year for those. And that still continues, right? The 80s were supposedly crap years for Gibson Les Pauls, but, I'm sure there were some amazing examples made in those years. You just got to find them. So, don't know. I think it all comes back down to the fact that pick your budget, play it, and does it speak to you? Or is it just a beaten up old guitar?
I guess, what do you intend to do with it? I mean, for me, it's always to play them.
There you go.
I wouldn't want to own something I didn't want to play. No. I didn't enjoy. I didn't like the sound of or the feel of, or it made me feel something when I play it.
Well, that's it.
Because that is the ultimate, isn't it?
I think
to feel moved by the instrument you play
and enjoy playing it. Yeah. Otherwise, you've bought it based on an idea of something. Yeah. And then you're stuck with the hangover of of feeling, well, I've spent all this money on something and it still doesn't really connect with me. I think that's the number one thing, right? Whenever you go to buy any guitar, irrespective of what price point, does it speak to you enough? Not to justify its price, but just to be something that you're going to play and enjoy playing. Yeah. And then if your wallet can accommodate whatever the price is, then great. But, I think too many people go out there to buy something because of the idea and the ideology behind it, rather than it is something that they're actually going to enjoy playing. Yeah, a whole load. Yeah. So play it, and if it speaks to you, it speaks to you.
Always play it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go, man.
Next. What's the next thing?
What we're going to do now?
Well, what's the next thing that from today's show, from today's exhibition? Yeah. Because that was the first thing we pretty much saw, wasn't it? All those vintage instruments. ATB guitars, I think the stand was. Yeah. Really great stand. A lot of kit, a lot of nice instruments. I'm going to check them out online. Yes. Because I'm sure I could just spend a lot of time.
He invited us to come and do an episode of the show down at the store.
Yes, exactly.
So we might take them up on that and go down and continue this conversation and go and try a whole bunch of stuff and have this conversation with them around vintage and price points and what makes these guitars worth the money. I think that'd be a great conversation to have in their store, where we can actually try some of this stuff out in a bit of peace and quiet. So let's do that. But then, what next? Where are we going to go this afternoon? What else have we seen that we're excited about?
Well, we saw the Scan Pro Audio.
Yes,
they're here, aren't they? Obviously, they're
big store here.
Exactly. So I think they originally started out as like computer parts, right? And they've grown their business into pro audio as well. And now they've just released, and they released it in time for this show. They just released a new range of instruments, a new brand of instruments, Fairclough guitars.
Well remembered.
And they're all in that kind of what's the word? Silly money.
As in silly,
inexpensive, we should say.
We never say cheap. We say affordable or inexpensive.
Yeah, exactly. So you're looking at 150 quid plus for a brand new...
That's crazy.
Les Paul, Strat, Telecaster, an SG as well. All the basic styles, and they've got some really nice acoustics as well.
This rivals anything from Harley Benton like stuff. If you were one of those listeners that's into kind of really inexpensive stuff that you want to learn how to do modding on, or you're just a beginner just starting out, this is the era to be alive for sure. We've just had a whole conversation about vintage instruments, but for sure now is the time to have access to this stuff on the market. But I tell you what, these guitars we've just seen from Scan Audio, incredible. Wilkinson hardware on them.
Wilkinson hardware, Wilkinson
pickups.
Yeah.
Really nicely finished.
Really well finished. Good choices. Some good colour options as well for them being inexpensive.
Yeah.
Not just the usual red and black or something like that. But also what the gentleman told me from Scan, he said, all those, they're all shipped out of the UK. They're manufactured in China, but they're shipped out of their warehouse in the UK. And when something is sold, it goes through their own internal setup process first. And he said it's not just a cursory change the strings, give it a dust down. He said they check the nuts filed down properly. They check that everything's been clean. They check the fret ends. They make sure everything's... So they get... He said you get the equivalent of a £70, £80 pro setup on every guitar that leaves. And I think that's shown because when I didn't get the chance to play through an amp or anything on them, but I held one of the guitars and had a good inspection of it. It felt and looked like something that had been set up with, decent amount of care and attention. Which for something because it used to be that you equated a cheap instrument or an inexpensive instrument with an entry level for like beginners guitar, and I think that's still the case, obviously. Yeah,
to a point. Yeah,
but I think there used to then be this thing of, well, if you're going to then go on to be a musician and perform, those guitars aren't suitable for it.
Exactly.
Maybe for intonation purposes, difficulty. Making sure that they work properly, poor quality components and stuff. I don't think that's the case anymore.
I don't think so either. I think these guitars are great beginner entry-level guitars that range of when it spans into being an intermediate guitar is much longer in terms of your playing career and time span, because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the guitar and the platform itself, right? Those cheaper guitars you used to buy back in the day were just dogs, right? And it was fine. You got the rudiments of the instrument, you learned how to play, but they would never stay in tune no matter what you did with them. And they were just basically badly put together, cheap, nasty.
Uncomfortable, weren't they, a lot of the time?
Whereas there's nothing wrong with these guitars. And then if you wanted to, as you became more proficient or you understood about tinkering with guitars, if you then wanted to put in a better set of tuning machine heads, put a bone nut in, change some electronics out, the basic platform there is still really decent enough for you to do that, for it to then become your guitar for the next few years. So I think that's the thing that's changed. They're fundamentally making really good guitars, shaving costs where needed, right? I mean, it's hard to see where they're shaving costs when you've got fully loaded Wilkinson instruments with hardware and pickups. It's not cheap, nasty stuff. The finish quality was really good. The fret ends were done, and they're getting like a £100 pro setup before they leave. You think that's just really good stuff. I mean, they're budget guitars for sure. But decent, really decent.
Yeah, but I think people should consider them as they're probably still comparable in quality to something that you would usually buy for double the money, £400.
Well, the Les Paul that I tried out was arguably as good, if not slightly better, because it had a decent, little setup on it. Even the guitar tech, who incidentally used to be Steve Vai's guitar tech.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
That is very cool.
It's pretty cool. He said, I haven't played with it that much. I've given it a little tweak here and there, but it hadn't had one of his full setups because they just got it unboxed and ready for the show today. So he said it's pretty much as it comes out of the box, but I've given it a little tweak, but it could do with a bit more. He hadn't done a full setup on that one. And I would say that was every bit as good as any Epiphone standard that I'd taken off the shelf. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And it was 150 quid.
150 quid.
So it's punching well above its weight at something that's probably like a £300-400 guitar.
Yeah,
which you go, that's not bad at all.
I agree. I'm excited by those guitars.
Yeah.
I think, you know what, we've always talked about this on this podcast for a long time about how excellent the market is in inexpensive stuff now. I was worried it was going to get saturated though.
Yeah.
And maybe it is, I don't know, but these seem like a really good addition. And I think what's happening is because Scan, as the company that owns that brand, I think because they have such extreme buying power, they're able to, reduce their costs. I think it's probably why they're able to put in decent hardware.
Well, he said they had a good relationship with Wilkinson anyway, so there was a partnership going on there in any case, so they were able to, as you say, leverage that relationship and purchasing power to put decent stuff in these guitars.
Wilkinson and Wilkinson are fantastic. I mean, if you for people who don't know, Wilkinson are, I think, a UK brand that have been around for a long time. Pickups and hardware.
They're here at the show as well.
They're here at the show. That's right.
They've got a clinic.
and they make some stuff. Some, you know, people like, if you buy Pete Thorne, you buy his signature Sir guitar, which I think is about £4,500. He's foregone the John Sir bridge for a Wilkinson bridge.
No,
that's a Wilkinson bridge, and he says he prefers the Wilkinson bridge over the John Sir original, because that's how good their hardware is. And like even my Mexican Strat at home is an aftermarket Wilkinson bridge, which just feels so much better.
Yeah.
I think it's just got a slightly bigger block underneath. It's just more. It seems to be much more reliable in maintaining the saddle height, even though it's still a vintage style. They're just obviously an excellent engineering company.
Yeah,
they engineer things really well.
Well, it's not rocket science if you get the original, you know, stamping right and you finish them in the right way. I mean, it should go onto a guitar and work in the way it does. Obviously, some stuff is machined cheaply and not finished properly, and it doesn't hold up. Whereas their stuff seems to, right? That's right. Which is great. I've used a bunch of Wilkinson stuff as aftermarket swap outs and guitars, and it's good. It's like it's my go-to budget. Not budget. Budget's the wrong word. It's my go-to kind of mid-range, reliable, decent quality stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think their stuff's been around for a long time as well now, and so to kind of, I think it goes to show some good decision making on the behalf of this Scan, who are producing these new guitars, Fairclough guitars. They've obviously done their research and said, well, we know we can get the basic wooden part of this instrument made well in China.
Yep.
One of the key things for us is going to be making sure the right components are in there. We don't ruin, you know, what can still be an inherently good instrument with poor quality components just to keep it cheap.
That's it.
So they've clearly done some thought it through properly, at least. I think it speaks volumes really for that guitar. I'm interested to see how well they do over the next year or two, especially against people like Harley Benton. But
well, that's their pitching, isn't it?
Especially in the UK now, you now have to pay a bit more of a premium for Harley Benton because of the whole Brexit and everything.
Sure.
And, you know, if you're spending more than £100 or so from Tone Man, getting something, you have to pay, you know, for a hefty amount of import duty. So that makes those instruments less achievable, you know, less kind of desirable. So to have something like that brand from Scar and Fairclough that's coming in, you know, start shipped from the UK at the same kind of price point as Harley Benton.
Well, the other thing it offers people in the UK is the opportunity to try it before you buy it, and that's you know, I love Tom and you know, I order a bunch of stuff from them, and great customer service and good quality products at great prices and all of that. Sounds like an advert, doesn't it? But they're not paying me, we're not affiliated. Exactly. But what I would say is the downside is you can't try anything. We're not based in Germany, so we can't try any of this stuff out. Whereas what I liked about today, what we saw at Scan Audio, is I got to try some of it and feel some of it and pick some of it up and go, I like the weight of this one, or this one feels like it's got a nice neck on it, and can't you know, make up for that experience when choosing a guitar, really. No.
And I think the other thing that we're benefiting from with these Fairclough guitars is the direct-to-consumer sales model, because I think a lot of the times, if you're in the UK and you're buying from a UK seller, you're often buying from people, you know, like your normal music retailers that are buying from distribution, who are buying from manufacturing. And now you've not got those extra two links in the chain now. These Scan them, getting them manufactured, and they're selling them direct to consumer. So you're not having to pay for everyone's margin in between as well to bring, because I guess that's the thing. You're buying from, if you go and buy a guitar from Anderton's, you're not just buying the guitar, you're paying for the margin that's been put onto that through distribution. You're paying for the margin that's been put onto that from, you know, from manufacture to distribution. And so you're having to spend money before you get to the instrument.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, Scanner obviously being able, they've got the power to be able to take these instruments straight to the consumer.
Cut out a step in the supply chain. That saves people money. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's right. A good model.
I think it is a good model. I think we benefit from it.
Yeah.
You know, because you could quite easily, like you said, because they stand up well against guitars more expensive.
Yeah.
You could quite easily slap 50 quid extra on those.
I wouldn't have been surprised if they told me that Les Paul was 250 quid and they were competing with Epiphones at £400. I would have gone, good on you, good price point.
Really good price point.
But it's 100 quid less than that.
Yeah.
Even more so. And you go, all right, that's...
But then you have to start asking, at that price point, 250 quid instead of 400, you're asking the customer then to say, do I save money on a brand I don't know?
True.
Now you're asking them to make a difficult decision about what they want on the headstock.
True.
Whereas at 150 quid, it's a no-brainer.
You just shave
I don't care
shave
now.
the headstock, put whatever decal you want on it.
or even just leave it there and say, yeah, but these Fairclough guitars are really good value.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. When you start adding more on and think, well, yeah, it could be worth more.
Yeah.
It's not just about the price.
Yeah,
Most people will buy a £350 Epiphone over a £300 cot.
Yeah.
You know, they will because it's the brand battle. And we're guitarists and we're terrible for wanting a particular thing to be on our headstock.
Of course. Well, we just talked about £300,000 vintage 1960s Gibsons.
Well, there you go. That's the first topic of conversation was the most expensive thing we've seen that cost more than my house. You know. But then again, you know, these things are still relevant, I guess, if people are buying them.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me, seeing these Fairclough guitars.
Lots of guitars at the show this year, more so than I've seen in previous years. And that sounds silly because it's a guitar show. But what I mean by that is, in previous years, lots more parts manufacturers here. All parts are here today, and there's six-string supplies are here. So there's a few of the big names with some guitar parts, but there used to be a lot more, I think, in previous years, which was always a bit of fun to rummage around. But there's a lot of guitars here, which is a good thing. But I also miss kind of hunting around and leaving with a few little trinkets and stuff.
I know.
Just means I'm going to have to buy a guitar today, doesn't it?
You're going to have to buy a guitar, Well, I need to buy something. I think I'm going to go down and see six-string supplies potentially.
I think you definitely should get one of those harnesses
for their harness for the Les Paul, I think.
Yeah, man.
But that's the great thing about this show, right? Is there's a lot of, as well as seeing these fantastic retailers like ATB Guitars and Scan come and really put on big presentations. There's some really cool one-man band type people, you know, people like James Collins who produce some of the nicest guitars you've ever seen, and there's some people you've never heard of before. You know, back of the shed kind of guys.
Who was the guy that we saw?
The guy that we saw,
the Viking stuff.
The guy from York.
Oh man, Anthony was his name.
His name was Anthony. That's right.
Was it Fourth Dimension?
Fourth Avenue Guitars.
Fourth Avenue.
Made to be played is his tagline on his card.
That's one of the most exciting guitars I've seen in a long time. The kind of Gibson-esque junior type thing.
It was like a Les Paul junior type single pickup, but as a kind of an example of his building abilities.
Wow,
it was really quite something. Even to the soldering inside that cavity.
Yeah, it was meticulous.
It was perfect, wasn't it?
Meticulous, as you'd expect.
Yeah,
but reasonably priced for the amount of workmanship in it.
Yeah,
premium stuff throughout, right? You know, the Goto hardware on it was just sublime, top of the range stuff. Hand wound pickup that he'd wound himself with a custom wooden pickup cover.
Yeah,
all exotic tone woods. You know, impeccable fretwork. Just attention to detail beyond belief, but then loads of little creative nuances and touches, like the scratch plate.
Exactly.
Was made of upcycled black piano keys that had been glued together and fashioned into
a single sheet of just great,
just looked incredible
craftsmanship.
Yeah, superb guitar, and all of his guitars come with these beautiful bespoke one-off
guitar
wooden stands that almost molds itself around and cradles the guitar to make this entire art piece of the guitar and the stand together in harmony.
That's right.
As a real visual impact of
it's really it's the polar opposite of everything we've just been talking about Fairclough, this Fairclough guitars.
Anthony's clearly an artist.
And I'm sure that he would apply the same skill and thought and craftsmanship and just fantastic design and art to anything that he did. It just so happens that it's luthiery that he's doing. And I mean, I tried 2 of his guitars. The fan fret one, which was utterly just amazing to play.
Silky, I think you said.
Just effortless. I forgot it was a fan fret. Actually, quite impressed at how it feels to play a fan fret. It's not that big of a fan.
Sure.
It's basically a Gibson scale length and a Fender scale length together, kind of thing. But that was just a joy to play and a beautiful bit of design, because it was basically a through neck, but no body. So what he's done is the veneers that he put on the top and the bottom, he's kind of curved them down around that through body part of the neck and kind of connected them either side.
Yes.
Kind of a Strat style shape.
Sure.
Maybe more of an RG Ibanez kind of shape.
Yes, very much so.
But it meant that you had this completely almost empty body that you could look through from top to bottom around it, and it just felt so light and comfortable to play.
It was incredibly light.
Yeah, so just exciting designs he was coming up with, even down to things like leather-bound guitars, copper, like
hand beaten out of copper,
hand beaten
335 style was
exactly,
that? Hand
that
beaten
kind
out of copper with metal rivets. I said it's a post-apocalyptic kind of
Mad Max
style, but he corrected me quite rightly. They were all kind of Viking inspired, so that kind of Norse influence kind of thing going on. Very cool, cool guitars. I want to go and have a look at some more stuff, man.
I know, so do I.
Yeah, you fired up and ready to go?
Should we do it? I mean,
let's do it. Let's go and have
fantastic.
We've got a good refreshment break. So
absolutely. Well, let's leave it there then, and let's go and have a look at some more stuff.
Nice.
All right, buddy.
Speak to you in a bit.
Thanks so much for listening. Remember to go and give those new guitar luthiers and guitar stores a like and a follow on social media. If you like what you hear, then remember there are 64 other episodes going back almost 2 years that you can check out, where we talk about things like how to set up your guitar, the best budget guitar amps, music theory, practicing. We've even got a Guitar Smarts pub quiz somewhere. Go and enjoy them. Anyway, best wishes and see you next time on the Guitar Smarts podcast.